And welcome, sports fans, to the Sports Roundtable. We're getting underway with an all-new season for the Sports Roundtable. Glad you joined us this morning, and we got some high school football to touch on from last night. Had a lot of games getting underway with Week 1 of high school football here in the state of Missouri, and plenty of games to talk about, which we'll get to in just a moment. Also, we got a special guest today, David Jenkins of the Standard Democrat. He's along with us to talk about those games last night as well as preview the season coming up, and we'll get into some state rankings, which we've got some local teams included for Week 1 of high school football this week. So lots to talk about today. We want to remind you to tune in each Saturday live at 10 a.m. right here on YHCV Channel 21 on your New Wave cable. Also watch online at YHCTV.com and SeawolfSportZone.com, and we'll bring it all to you right here on the Sports Roundtable each week, going now all the way through May, each Saturday, right here for the Roundtable. And let's go ahead and get to the games that we covered from last night. And first, starting off with the game we did last night, Fredericktown and Kennett. Kennett won that game 32-19. Impressive victory for the Kennett Indians last night. Very effective game plan. Come out and force some turnovers, took advantage of them, and come away with the victory. We'll show some highlights of that game upcoming, but a nice, impressive victory for the Kennett Indians last night. Also, St. Genevieve defeated Dexter 27-21, and quite a game that was last night. A lot of turnovers, and probably decided that game last night. Dexter, on the losing end of that, had a chance to win it late, and a touchdown called back due to quarterback Peyton Pollock being over the line of scrimmage on the last pass. So a tough loss for the Bearcats last night, but come down to the wire between them and St. Genevieve last night. And another game from last night, Malden over New Madrid County Central 54-26. Impressive victory for the Malden Green Wave. And that game last night, last year, low scoring, 12-0 in favor of Malden. Really opened up the doors last night offensively. The Green Wave did, scoring 54 points in that contest, scoring 46 in the first half. So they surely, caught off the dogs there in the second half. An impressive victory over New Madrid County Central to start off their season. And we'll talk about their game coming up with Crothersville next week. It'll be very interesting to see how it plays out next week. And Jackson got a nice victory last night, 62-34 over Battle. No problem for the Jackson Indians. They roughed up on them last year in the opener as well. No problem for the Indians. Probably the top team in Southeast Missouri. Might have a chance at that Class 5 state title game this year, which we'll have David Jenkins along with us to talk about the Jackson Indians this year. We got off to a great start last night, breaking 60 points against Battle. We got Poplar Bluff over Fox 35-21. Impressive victory for the Poplar Bluff Mules over Fox out of Arnold. And in other games, can we go to the other games here? Mountain View Liberty over Crothersville, big 52-14, and a tough go for the Crothersville Tigers. They've really struggled against Mountain View Liberty over the past few years that they've met up, and it's a tough one to open up with, certainly, against Mountain View Liberty. So Liberty certainly got Crothersville's number in the opening week of the season, going back the past 3 years. And in other games, Cape Central over Vashon, 44-34. The Cape Central Tigers opening up season with the win on the road. And also we've got Sykeston over Charleston, the longest rivalry in the state of Missouri, and it was no contest. Sykeston over Charleston 66-20, and Sykeston put up 50 points just in the first quarter. So just gives you some reference of how that game went early on. Sykeston dominant, certainly in that first half of that contest with Charleston. And in other games, Perryville over Sumner 13-12, and certainly the closest game of the night. We've had some routes last night, but certainly this was the closest one of the bunch from last night. And Thayer over Hayti, 18-12 in a Class 1 battle, and Hayti hanging tough with Thayer. Thayer's always a strong group there in Class 1, and they can meet up later on in district time. They are in the same district, so I want to look forward to that matchup later in the season. And also Herculaneum over Scott City, 26-22. And that's pretty much all the matchups from last night. And we want to remind you that the Fredericktown and Kennett game that we televised last night will replay here on YHC Sunday at 4. Sunday at 4, that game will replay right here on YHC. So look forward to that replay. We'll also have it available online to view probably tomorrow as well on SemoSportZone.com. So nice game to take a look at for this weekend from last night, Fredericktown and Kennett. Also, the next game we've got to broadcast next Friday night, we'll have Poplar Bluff and Dexter right here at Charles Bland Stadium in Dexter, and that'll be live next Friday night at 7 p.m. Right now it's scheduled for 7 p.m. A lot of these games were moved back an hour due to the heat, try to escape the heat for the late afternoon, and we'll see how that plays out next week. But Poplar Bluff at Dexter next Friday night, live right here on YHC and SemoSportZone.com. And we're going to take a quick break and bring along David Jenkins. David Jenkins with the Standard Democrat, talk about last night's games, recap those, and as well as preview the football season coming in, how the districts are going to break down, even the conferences. So we're going to take a quick break and be back with him coming up.
NFL Red Zone, the channel that brings you every touchdown from every game on Sunday afternoons. Watch the most exciting moments like never before, live in HD. Every touchdown from every game, live on one channel, NFL Red Zone.
Always on the go. Take the best in TV entertainment with you with New Wave to Go. Now you can enjoy your home television service everywhere, anytime on your laptop, tablet, or smartphone. Watch your favorite channels and sporting events live via the internet. Even access your home DVR to enjoy your recorded shows and movies or to set up future recordings. Prices start at just $12.99 a month. So call us today and ask about New Wave to Go. Another innovative service brought to you by New Wave, your local communications experts.
Deposit your check here. Or here. Or even there. Deposit your check wherever you are with First Midwest Bank's new mobile deposit. Just tap, snap, deposit. It's that simple. New mobile deposit from First Midwest Bank, serving the communities we call home.
You want to see me, sweetie?
Hello, Daddy. Have a seat, please. I need my own DVR. I work hard around here. When I get free time, I like to unwind to Good Luck Charlie.
Hey, no problem, no problem. We just got the boss from New Wave. Now we can record up to 6 shows at once.
6 shows at once? Someone's gunning for a promotion.
The boss from New Wave. Make TV work for you. Call 1-888-8-NEW-WAVE today.
What is your emergency? Need assistance at County Road 61 and Highway 9. Help is on its way.
Clear! There's a better way to jumpstart your soil back to health. Apply Endzone to protect and increase nitrogen efficiency without killing bacteria. Apply Prevent to increase phosphorus availability and reduce fixation. Better yet, use them both to get more from your fertilizer investment and see higher potential yields. Ag Explorer, your prescription for healthy soil.
Welcome to NFL Total Access,
the show that takes you inside the locker room and down on the field. With inside access to all 32 teams all year long. NFL Total Access, Monday through Saturday, only on NFL Network.
NFL Network, where football season never ends.
And we're back in along with David Jenkins of the Standard Democrat. And David, it's good to have you back with us, starting off this football season.
Good to be back. Glad football's back.
Yeah, it come quick this year. Moved it up a week, and it's come a lot quicker this year.
A lot quicker. It's a lot hotter than what I like. But I'm glad football's back, and we're into the season.
Sure, and a lot of games to talk about last night, and we're going to talk about all these games as well as the teams coming in to this year. We'll first start off with the Kennett and Fredericktown game from last night, and Kennett got that victory over Fredericktown last night on their home field, and we got some highlights to show that we're going to try to show as well from that game last night. And of course the big story coming in is the Pixley brothers are together, Aaron and Arlen, as we see here. Kennett got on the board early, nice rollout pass by Akeem Nelson, going to take it within the 5-yard line, and he's going to punch it in with the keeper there. And he had a couple scores on the night. Akeem Nelson, very effective for the Indians last night, caught the ball up there, and Fredericktown was in the red zone, punched it in just a few plays later, tied it up 6-6. And later on in the first half, seeing Kennett driving here, taking the handoff, runs it in for another touchdown, and put the Kennett Indians up 12-6. And right here at the end of the half, a nice defensive effort, deflecting the pass, keeping the Black Cats out of the end zone. And here's probably the longest run of the night here by the Black Cats. Some nice running, going towards the end zone and tying that game up at 12 apiece. And I believe Fredericktown took the lead on the extra point, 13-12. Kennett answered right back, coming back a nice run and score by Akeem Nelson. Had a nose for the end zone last night. There gets to the pylon, and they go up 18-13. And another scoring drive late in the third quarter by the Indians, go up 25-13. And there's probably the play of the game. Pass a little over the head of the Black Cat receiver, and return for a touchdown by the Indians. And that pretty much put it away at that point there in the fourth quarter. Went up 31-13 and held on for that 31-13 victory. So I was very impressed with Kennett last night. And what was certainly a concern last year was their defensive front and tackling, but they really got into the backfield, pursued in the backfield, got some tackles for loss, very aggressive up front, the Kennett Indians last night. And we talked about right before the replay there, Pixley brothers, Arlen, Aaron together. Arlen's been at New Madrid County Central for a good while. Aaron come over from Dexter. Those two together going to bring some intensity to this team.
Right, and Arlen comes over and he's in charge of the defense, and one thing he's going to bring is that intensity. He's going to bring that that fire, and they're going to get after it, and they're going to be aggressive. And you saw that last night. And together, they're going to be a very coached team. And there's a lot of enthusiasm in Kennett, which it seems like they haven't had for a while. A lot of enthusiasm around their football program, and they've got a good playmaker in Nelson. He's a heck of a player, and I think he's just a junior, so they're going they're going to have time to mold him, and they've got some good players, some good athletes there. So you expect them to get better each and every year, and I expect them to be better this year than they were last year.
Sure, they made a nice leap just judging off week one. A lot more intensity up front. The defensive front, they stuffed a lot of plays at the line of scrimmage. Didn't give up any big plays. We saw the one long run, but other than that, they really had to work out their drives. The Black Cats did. So pretty impressive opening game for the Kennett Indians. And I tell you, Nelson, he's very effective. They're rolling him out, faking, rolling out. He's getting yards. He's able to throw it downfield. Pretty potent attack there with Akeem Nelson.
Yeah, he still needs to work on a little bit of his decision making and throwing the football. But as far as his athletic ability and his ability to get out on the edge, I mean, he's going to create havoc for a lot of teams. He's got some amazing speed, and he's got good moves once he gets in the open field, and his passing has gotten better from last year to this year. So and like I said, he's only a junior, so he's going to continue to get better for him.
Yeah, impressive victory for the Kennett Indians last night. And moving on to some other games, I know you were at the Sykeston and Charleston game. Boy, they got out of hand early. So just give us some insight on that.
Charleston's not very good. I mean, you hate saying it, they're young. They lost pretty much everything from last year. I think they have 18 freshmen on their roster this year out of like 34 players. So I mean, they play a lot of young kids, and they're not very big. They're not very strong. Sykeston just kind of pushed them around on the line, and it got out of hand early. Charleston kind of tried to run some spread. They had some trouble with the snap and turned the ball over a few times, and it just kind of snowballed on them real quick. And that happens when you're rebuilding a little bit. I think the future's bright for them. They've got some. They do have Rontavious Clark, who's a really good player. But Charleston struggled. On the other side, Sykeston, they're kind of like they were last year. They're not going to be just an amazing team. They don't have great team speed, but they're going to be a good team. They're going to get 6 or 7 wins, and they're going to be in the mix. Whenever it comes conference time and district time, they're going to be there in the mix. But they're not the team they were several years ago when they were making the state semifinals. But they're still a good football team.
Yeah, 50 points in the first quarter.
It was it was bad. It was just. Things just snowball, and it went downhill quick. And Sykeston, returned a couple turnovers for touchdowns. They recovered a fumble in the end zone, and then when they did have the ball on offense, they were able to dominate the line of scrimmage. And once you got past the line of scrimmage, they didn't have very far to go to get in the end zone anyway. So they, I don't think they had a whole lot of yards as far as number wise, but that 50 points in the first quarter will open some eyes.
Yeah, tough break there for the Charleston Blue Jays. Certainly got to regroup and come back for week 2. Just put that one behind you. And
they'll get better. They'll get better, and the future's bright for them with all those freshmen. It's just they've got to get bigger and stronger. And they just, when you're that small of a school playing at Sykeston, it's just tough on you to start with, and then add in that you're freshmen, and that just makes it even worse. So they'll get better. They'll get a lot better.
Sure, we'll see going forward with both teams. And St. Genevieve and Dexter last night, boy, you had to be on the edge of your seat because you wouldn't know you wouldn't know what was coming next if you were watching that game. From what it seemed, so many turnovers, and that was
a thriller. Good thing about the Charleston Sykeston game being a blowout the way it was over early, so I got to hear the end of the Dexter game, and it seemed like it was an exciting game. They had the big bomb there at the end that they caught for a touchdown that Dexter went ahead, but then they called it back because he was just past the line of scrimmage, and it sounded like it was an exciting game. Just a few mistakes there at the end for Dexter that they just a few too many mistakes, and they've got to get that fixed, and they will. I think they're going to be better than they were last year. How much better I don't know, but they are going to be better, and I think they showed that last night. St. Genevieve's always good, even though they're young this year. They're still a good football program, and they've got things. That seemed to be whenever Coach Pixley was here, it always seemed to be what he was looking to do is have a team like St. Genevieve, and I think Dexter's continued that. They want to have a program like St. Genevieve, and in order to have a program like that, you've got to beat them, and getting close. That's another step, and so hopefully in the next couple of years they can get overcome that and kind of become that St. Genevieve program here in Southeast Missouri.
Yeah, well, you talk about making mistakes. St. Genevieve made their fair share. I think 5 lost fumbles in the game, and they may have had more turnovers, but I know they had 5 lost fumbles, and fortunate to come out with a win with that many turnovers.
And they knew coming in they were going to be very young. They're low on numbers this year. They lost 10 starters on offense from last year, and then I think their only returning starter blew out his knee before the season. So, they replaced the entire group. So they knew they were going to struggle a little bit offensively, but they made the big play there at the end when they had to on I think a 45-yard touchdown pass. They just got behind the Dexter defense a little bit and made the pass. Their quarterback's a sophomore, so he's kind of learning and everything. But Coach Stolzer has a great program up there, and they always they're always going to be very they're not going to be ever down where they're not very good. And for Dexter to go up there and play with them, I think it shows that Dexter's improved a lot from over last year.
Yeah. And going to be competitive. They got a game with Poplar Bluff next week. Dexter does that. We'll be carrying. So it's going to be a tough test on their home field next week.
I've heard a lot of people say Poplar Bluff's down this year, but I don't know how much because they did lose 4 of their 5 starting linemen, but they returned their running back, their quarterback, and a couple of skill players. I mean, they've got some talent over there, and I think they're going to surprise some people. I thought they were pretty decent last year, and their running back and quarterback were pretty good, and they're back. If they can just find an offensive line, which it looked like they found last night, they handled Fox pretty easily, and Fox is a bigger school and everything. So I think that they, I think they're going to be a tough test for Dexter. I think they're going to be a tough test for a lot of teams around here. I think they're kind of going to be one of those schools that you really don't hear about, and all of a sudden you see them, they got 6 or 7 wins.
Yeah, B wins. Their
running back, and Cameron Misner's the quarterback. He set all kinds of records last year, and then Misner, I think he's a junior this year after started the whole season last year. I mean, and he was a pretty good player. He's kind of a playmaker, so they've got a couple good players there to build around. And like I said, you find an offensive line that can protect them a little bit and make some holes. That they could be trouble.
Sure could. And we'll be looking forward to that Poplar Bluff Dexter game next Friday here on YHC. Should be a good one. And also a game out there I really was looking forward to. I wish I could have been at that New Madrid County Central Malden game. I thought it was going to be a closer game, but this Green Wave team is for real.
Yeah, Malden's going to be tough this year. They return a lot. They're very experienced. They've got playmakers all over the field. They've got a good offensive and defensive line, which is very important in high school football. And they're going to be a tough team to handle. I'm really interested to see how they play against Crothersville on Friday night. It's a great Week 2 matchup because those are probably the two favorites in that Class 2 District 1. And this may be the year Malden can knock off Crothersville. Crothersville's kind of owned that for a while now, and Crothersville has a new coach and they're replacing a lot of players. Malden very experienced, and Malden's hungry, and that's a lot of it too. So I think Malden may be able to get Crothersville this year.
Yeah, it's going to be a highly anticipated game next week. I know
it's going to be a tough test.
Green Wave fans are fired up. They, Crothersville's had their number and pretty much owned Class 2 over the handful of years, and you get a team that sees that light, sees that opportunity, and they're going to go after it. And Crothersville's going to have to bring their A game, which they, coming off the loss they took last night. It's going to be hard to come back and regroup. The Mountain View Liberty.
Yeah, Liberty's good, and that going in. Liberty's probably been the best Class 2 team besides Lamar the last couple of seasons. But they run into Lamar, who rolls to a state title each year. But Liberty's probably had that second best team in the state, and they've got things rolling over there. They're very well coached, and he's got that. He's got his program and his system very. He's got it down, and those kids, coming up, they know what they're supposed to be doing, and so even if they're replacing a lot of players, they've got people behind them that can fill those roles. So, we knew they were going to be good, and they showed it last night. I think they scored 38 points in the second quarter against Crothersville, and Crothersville, had the same thing last year. Crothersville, lost big at home to Liberty, and then they had Malden, who was coming in, kind of the upstart last year. Thought it might be a good game, and Crothersville handled them pretty easily, and so you don't know if it'll be the same thing this year. It's kind of hard to judge when they play Liberty. Kind of hard to judge what they have, but I think this year Malden's going to put up a good fight for Crothersville. I think that's going to be a knockdown, drag-out fight on Friday night, and that's going to be a fun game to be at.
Yeah, it's game of the year potential between those two schools.
Definitely.
So certainly looking forward to that game next Friday night. And where is it going to be at this year?
I think it's at Crothersville, but I'm not 100% sure.
Either way, it's going to be a good one to look forward to next Friday night between Crothersville and Malden. Might be a district championship preview between those two later on as well.
And it could be one of those games where whoever wins this game may not win the game if they play later on in the season. So you really don't know. It's just basically I think they're playing for home field advantage in the district. So it's kind of early Week 2 to be saying that, but you look at that district and those are definitely the two best teams in that district.
Yeah, and the playoffs change. You talk about home field advantage. Used to, there's no such thing. You just played when you played, but with that tournament format now and the seedings,
you definitely want to get that top seed. And if you lose, it's not the end of the world. It's not. They're in. You're not going to be. You just may have to play on the road in the district championship game. So it's not the end of the world. But at the same time, if you're especially if you're Malden, you want to win. You want to kind of put your stamp on the district, say, hey, we're here and we're ready to take that next step.
Yeah. So looking forward to that one next Friday night. And also in some other games, Jackson, strong season last year. They make it out to the quarterfinals.
Yeah.
Quarterfinals last year. Very good team. Come on strong very late. And bringing back a really strong team once again this year. Didn't have any problem with battle last night, 62-34.
Right.
What can you tell us about Jackson coming in?
They're going to be good. They're going to be really good. Dante Van Dieven is probably the best player in Southeast Missouri. He's their quarterback and is fantastic. I think he threw for over 2,000 last year and rushed for like 900. I mean, he puts up just crazy numbers, and they say he's only better this year. I know that he's getting a lot of looks from Division I colleges. He's an outstanding player. He's got some good wide receivers to throw to. They have a very good offensive line to protect him. They're going to be an explosive offensive team. 62 points, and Battle's a good team. They got some votes in the state rankings for Class 5. So, Battle's a good team, and so Jackson's just the sky's the limit for Jackson. They can really make some noise this year, and I expect them to. I think that they've got a tough schedule, but that's going to get them ready for district time. And I think they have a chance to make some noise because they've got good players all over the field and a great coach to go along with it. So.
Yeah, Coach Eckley there with Jackson certainly has made some big strides since he's come along with Jackson.
Yeah, I think it's his third year there, and he's really rebuilt that program. They were really down there for a couple of years, and he came in with a lot of high praise, and he's really proved that he's a heck of a coach, and they run that spread offense, and they run it to perfection. I mean, it's fun to watch, and if anybody ever gets a chance to watch their offense, it is really fun to watch. It's fast paced. And they can get up and down the field.
Yeah, and Jackson's probably one of the more storied programs in Southeast Missouri, and they've had some groups go to the semifinals and make some deep runs. When you're playing that Class 5, you're really playing up against some high caliber competition. They're right there in the midst.
There's some good teams there, but the great thing about them adding the sixth class is it kind of weeded it out a little bit on Class 5, so it's winnable now. Where whenever it was Class 5, but you had the Class 5 and Class 6 together, and making up to Class 5, it was a lot more difficult. And so it would not shock me to see Jackson get all the way. I mean, there's some good teams in their way, but they're a good team too. So there's no. It's not like in Class 4 where you have Webb City, or in Class 2 where you have Lamar, who's just unbelievable, and everybody else is. Or Class 6 you have the Kansas City and St. Louis schools that are the really big schools. So I mean, I think Jackson has a chance. They could make some noise in Class 5, and it wouldn't shock me to see them up in the dome.
Yeah, we'll see. And they were close last year. Made a good run last year. Fell a little short in the quarterfinals. We'll see how it goes this year with the Jackson Indians. Also. See some other game. Haytime Thayer down in Class 1. Always a nice rivalry between those two. You take Valley Catholic, Thayer, Haytime. They're kind of the mainstays of Class 1 down there, going for district titles. And Haytime put up a pretty good fight with Thayer last night.
They did. And I was kind of surprised. Haytime's really young. They're not. I think they only have maybe 25, 26 players out. So they go both ways. And Thayer's the type of team that kind of can give them problems because they'll just line it up and just run it down your throat. And Haytai likes to they like to get out and play fast, and Thayer's going to slow that game down. And so it's kind of surprising that it was a close game. It's good to see. I think that bodes well for Haytai to go over there and play them close. And I think Haytai may be better than some people think. And I said that they play have a lot of young players, a lot of juniors and sophomores that they're kind of relying on. And I think it's going to bode well for them that they played this game close, and that who knows, they may be able to make a little bit of noise in Class 1.
Yeah, and there's always Valley Catholic.
Yeah,
always there.
Joe's kind of run into them, and they hammered St. Vincent last night, and they're not going to slow down any at all.
Yeah,
they just reload.
Yeah, they sure do. It's unbelievable, that program up there. They just keep it turning every year.
Yeah, and you kind of wonder how much St. Genevieve's low on numbers. You kind of wonder how many of those kids end up at Valley now that used to end up at St. Genevieve. Of course, St. Valley's been good for forever, but it seems like the last few, 4, 5, 6 years, they've just really kind of jumped back up to just dominant status.
Yeah.
And
win the state championships, probably your best recruiting tool.
Right, that's going to help. And then when you're a private school, and people can pretty much get anybody from that area. That's a good, obviously that's a good thing, especially when you're a Class 1 school. But I don't know if there's any answer, but it just kind of seeing how the low numbers at St. Genevieve are and how the numbers are building up at Valley, just kind of you wonder how much their success is drawing kids away from St. Genevieve.
Yeah, well, success will do that. So, Cape Central got a victory last night, and they had a really good year last year, making it out to the semifinals, returning some of their key players, Al Young notably, star wide receiver, and Peyton Montgomery coming over from Chaffee from last year.
That'll be huge for them because that gives them the quarterback that they need this year. I know their quarterback last year graduated, so they needed a quarterback in there and just get someone to get the ball to Al Young. And Al Young is unbelievable, an unbelievable athlete. He's fast, can jump, and just is he's going to cause anybody problems. And they played Vashon last night. Vashon played him close. I think it ended up being a 44-34 game. And Vashon, you really don't hear much of. You hear about Vashon basketball. You never hear about Vashon football. But they've got a pretty good football team this year. They returned their quarterback who put up some big numbers last year. He's very athletic, and I think he's just a junior, and he's starting to get some looks from colleges and stuff. So they were a pretty good football team, and Cape Cape handled them and got the win on the road up in St. Louis. It's never easy to play up there. And I think Cape needs to work on their defense a little bit, but I think they've kind of talked about that in the offseason. But their offense, I don't think is going to be a problem. They've got some playmakers all over the field.
Okay, can you give us some insight on how good of a receiver on the national level that Al Young is? I mean, I see him and he's just unbelievable. So is he a top tier Division I wide receiver potentially?
Yeah, he could be. He's got to get a little bit bigger and stronger. I mean, we saw him on the basketball floor, and he's an unbelievable athlete, and that's a lot of it. And he's got great hands. He can get up and down the field. He's great speed. His size is, he's not real tall, so he's not like Dorial Green Beckham's. Whenever they recruited, so he's not going to be, a top 10 wide receiver coming out of high school. But at the same time, I think he's definitely a D1 caliber athlete. He's going to go D1 in some sport, and my guess is it's going to be football. But he's a great athlete, and they'll find a place for him on the field. As far he, like I said, he'll go somewhere in D1.
So yeah, it's just hard to really judge it because we haven't really had receivers come out.
Right. I think the only thing holding him back is his size. I think he's only 5'10", 5'11", something like that. So he doesn't have the 6'3", 6'4" frame that a lot of those guys have. But he's definitely got the athletic ability, and he can jump out of the gym. We saw him, like I said, during basketball season. He's an incredible athlete and with great hands, and that's a key too. So he'll be highly recruited, but and he'll go D1. So I mean, he's going to be. There's nobody around here. There's not a defensive back around here that can handle him one-on-one. I'll say that.
I know it's catching from last year, just unbelievable, and to me, it just looks like he can almost have anywhere he wants to go when it comes to school. But we don't see that many dominant receivers around that play at that high level. So it's hard to find a reference for him.
It's really, because really there's nobody that I can think of, as far as who to compare him to. There's nobody that I can just it just pops into my mind. He's so athletic, and he's so fast, too. It's just tough. Like I said, there's not a defensive back that's going to be able to handle him one-on-one. They're going to have to double him, and if you're Peyton Montgomery, the Cape Central quarterback, and you're in trouble, you know where you're going. You're just going to throw it up and let him, because he's going to out-jump anybody too to catch the ball. So it's a great thing to have your Cape Central.
Yeah, certainly. Peyton Montgomery made a
good choice.
Switch, yeah.
Good choice in switching from Chaffee, especially after what happened with Chaffee last night. Chaffee's going to be way down this year.
Yeah.
It's going to be a tough year for Chaffee. They're going to be rebuilding, and so probably a good move for Peyton, especially if he has a chance to play in college. It's a good choice for him.
Sure. And some other games out there may have overlooked. Trying to think.
You had Kelly.
Kelly
starting their very first ever game at East Prairie, and kind of a rough start. They fumbled the very first play, but Kelly's not going to be just a terrible football team. East Prairie is a lot better this year. For years you've been hearing East Prairie say, "Well, we're rebuilding. We got young kids." Well, they're finally getting a little bit older. They've got a couple playmakers. They've got a pretty decent quarterback, and East Prairie is not going to be a terrible team this year. And Kelly played them fairly close last night. I think it was 29-7, but it was a little bit closer than that. Kelly just had a little bit of trouble scoring, but their nerves and everything else for their first game. I think Kelly's going to win a few games this year, being their first season out, which is, you can't ask for much more than that. They've had JV, the last couple of years, and have done well in JV level. They've got a lot of big kids up front, so I think Kelly's going to surprise some people and win a few games. I think East Prairie's going to surprise some people and win a few games.
That's one thing about Kelly; they got the big kids.
Mm-hmm. They've always had the big kids. You always kind of looked around saying, "What if they had a football team?" And now we find out if they could just find some playmakers, at the skill positions. And it's going to take a little bit, because a lot of those kids, they're really still new to football. Once they kind of figure it out, they play a lot of younger ones, and I think they're going to have a good football program there here in a few years.
Yeah, I can remember going back playing in high school, playing against Kelly, in some games, and it's like, my goodness, these guys would be tough football players because, boy, they were bruisers. They would lay a lick on you, you'd feel it, and they got some big boys and strong boys. So
and
once they put the program together, and they'll be able to control the line of scrimmage.
Right, and they did some of that last night, and like I said, East Prairie is going to be a lot better than what people think, and so for Kelly to play them close, they weren't blown out. I think it was a win for them, a step in the right direction, and they have some winnable games on their schedule this year. I'm interested to see what they do against the Charleston and the Chaffee. I think they can win. Those are winnable games for them. So I think Kelly's going to come out with a few wins this year, which is great to say in your first year, your first varsity season.
Sure. Yeah, it's exciting for Kelly.
Yeah, and there's a lot of fan support for them. They filled the stands last night. They wrapped around the East Prairie Field, and I think their home opener is next week against Crystal City, I believe, and they will pack the Kelly. I mean, that's going to be hard to even just, if you're around there trying to take a picture or something, around the field, it's going to be tough because they're going to be all over the place.
Yeah, it's great. See Kelly get the support of their local fans and community. That's great. Trying to think if there's anybody else we left out. Pretty much noted on the main teams coming into this year. We'll go ahead and take a look at the state rankings that were released for the week coming into this season. And Class 1 from the Missouri Sports Writers and Broadcasters. Valley Catholic, no surprise, coming off an undefeated 15-0 season. State champions last year. They had a number 1, so like you said, they reload. And
yeah, they're good again this year. Whatever they lose, they just replace with players that are just as good, if not better sometimes. So
yeah, and they're leading off with number 1, number 2, Western, 3.
And I believe they play Western here in a few weeks. I think that'll be. I think they play them at Jeff City Helias on a Saturday here in a couple of weeks. So that'll be a heck of a matchup, for a midseason game for Valley.
Sure, yeah, certainly. Top 2 teams in the state in Class 1 meeting up in a few weeks. 3, Hamilton Penny, coming off 7-2 season. 4, Osceola. 5, Salisbury. 6, South Shelby. 7, Marionville. 8, Skyline. 9, Marceline. And 10, Cass Midway, making up the Class 1 rankings coming into this week. And Class 2, we'll just get up to Class 3 here. Maryville at number 1. 2, John Burroughs. 3, Blair Oaks. 4, California. 5, Park Hill Central. 6, Mountain Grove. 7, Duchesne. 8, Oak Grove. 9, Cameron. And 10, Ava. And moving up to Class 4, Webb City at number 1, 2, Jeff City Helias, 3, St. Charles West, 4, Carl Junction, 5, Kearney, 6, Festus, 7, Bolivar, 8, Miller Career Academy, 9, Westminster Academy, and 10, a two-way tie, Cape Central and Moberly. And no surprise, Webb City's up top there at number 1.
Yeah, Webb City, I think you just might as well just pencil them in every year. Or they have that program just unbelievably rolling. It's one of the top programs, not only in the state but in the nation, for winning and every year and winning state titles. And it's just a great program. And you look at Festus there. Festus is in the district with Cape Central. That's going to be a interesting. Those two teams. I know Festus has their eyes on Cape Central. I've read a preview that they're already looking at Cape Central as their biggest rival, and I believe them in Hillsboro. But they're really looking at Cape Central, and Festus thinks they've got a team that's going to win that district this year. So that'll be a fun district to watch as the season goes on.
Certainly, yeah. It's Cape made a really good run last year. Made a semifinal berth, and that's pretty stout for Class 4.
And they saw firsthand what Webb City is and is all about. They were not even in that ball game from the start. It was just and they knew that going in. They knew they had an uphill battle, and Webb City, they're just a talented team.
Yeah, they are, and they win state championships soundly.
Yeah, it's not even close. I think the year that Sykeston played Warrenton in the semifinals and Warrenton went on, I think it was I think they scored Webb City scored 35 first quarter points against Warrenton. I mean, just boom, there it is. And they do it, most of it on the ground. They just run that. They're so big up front. They dominate the line of scrimmage, open huge holes, and then their skill players just take off and go. I mean, and they do it every single year. It's just they just have just a great program. They started in the young kids and they just build it up. They have great fan following over there. It's an event. They have a huge field. It's an event over there, and it's when you have a team that wins like that, everybody wants to play, and it's the whole Friday Night Lights thing there. It's craziness, but they're good.
Yeah. How many in a row they won now?
6, I think. I think it's 6. I may be wrong on that, but it's something like that. And I think it's like 8 of the last 9 or 9 of the last 10 or something like that. I think they slipped up the one year, but that was it. They haven't lost a game in the state in maybe 6 seasons.
Wow.
The only loss they've had is outside of the state.
Yeah, that was last year.
Yeah,
14-1 season last
year.
Yeah,
but they don't lose to any Missouri schools, no matter what size, no matter anything. They schedule tough. They schedule tough schools, and they played Carthage last night, and Carthage is one of the bigger schools, and Carthage is a school that thinks that they can play with Webb City. They've really been building their program up, and Webb City beat them 21-0, and Carthage was just hoping to score, I think, in the game. I think that was going to be a step for them, but they held them to 21-0. So Carthage has got a pretty good team just to hold them to 21-0. So we'll see what Carthage has later on. But Webb City is always good, and they're the favorite to win every single year in Class 4.
Yeah, we'll be surprised if they don't win.
Right. Yeah.
So that's the way it's been in Class 4 past number of years. And moving on to Class 5, Fort Osage leading with number 1, or two-way tie for number 1. It's Fort Osage and Webster Groves. 3, Parkway Central. 4, Nixa. 5, Jackson. 6, Winnetonka. 7, Staley. 8, Willard. 9, two-way tie for 9 is Camden and Liberty North. So Jackson cracking that top 5 of this year. And I don't last year it took them, midway or later in the season before they even cracked the top 10 last year.
Right, yeah. They kind of had to earn it because, they had been down for a while. I think they were just 5-5 the year before that. And so last year, whenever they came out, they had to earn a little bit. And, I think the state voters were going to, see if they were for real or not. They played some, I'm not going to say weaker schools because they really weren't. But, they wasn't the tough schedule they had to start off this season. And so they made them earn it. But once they got there, they stayed. And it's and they're definitely deserving of a state ranking. And you look at Webster Groves, who that they could possibly meet, like I think in maybe a semifinal or quarterfinal. That's Webster Groves has an outstanding quarterback as well, who is a dual threat. And Webster Groves, that would be an outstanding game. I think that'd be a fun game to watch. So hopefully they can get there and meet in that game.
Sure. And we missed out on Class 2 there. We may have missed out on that, but Crothersville's in that top 5. I believe they're 5th.
I'm not sure, but I think Lamar again is up at the top, and Liberty's up there, and Lamar just reloads. They're kind of like Valley and Webb City. They just kind of reload. They have that dual quarterback system, which is messes teams up. They're out of the shotgun. You don't even know which guy they're going to snap it to. It's a crazy offense that they run, but they run it to perfection. And for a Class 2 school, they have like 70, 80 kids out to play, and they have a lot to choose from, and the kids can play too. So it's they have that program rolling, and I know that Liberty is Liberty Mountain View. They're trying to get there to that level. That's the team that beats them every year. We've talked about earlier how they're probably the best. They're probably the best team in Class 2 outside of Lamar. And Crowsville saw firsthand what they had last night. So I think there's a big drop off between the 1 and 2 teams there and everybody else. Because Lamar, they rolled state titles too. When they get that state championship game, it's usually not even close.
Yeah. And Malden cracked that top 10 as well. I think they're in at number 9.
I believe so, yes.
Number 9, and a lot of expected of Malden Greenway this year, being in that top 10 out of the gate.
Crowsville's probably going to fall. I mean, they may even fall out, and Malden will stay or maybe raise a little bit. So there's a possibility to have 2 state-ranked teams there playing on Friday nights, and that's going to be a fun game. Like I said before, it's a chance for Malden to make a statement and say that, hey, we're here, we're ready, we're for real. And if Crowsville wins, then you kind of wonder, well, can Malden get them? But it's a big game, I think, for Malden especially.
Certainly. And probably game of the year potential in that game next week with Crothersville and Malden. That pretty much wraps up the state rankings for this week. And just trying to make sure we didn't leave anything out that had taken place last night. Any developments over the last week that worth mentioning around?
Not in football. I think there's some, we've heard some basketball rumblings, but as far as football, I think that's pretty much everybody's just been anxious to get out on the field and get going.
Yeah, and we got week 1 under the belts already. Week 2 taking place next Friday night, and taking a look at these teams, you take a look. Dexter's going to have a chance to potentially host a playoff game if they can get some wins on their schedule, and that's the thing about the playoffs anymore. You got to have a good regular season so you can get one of those home playoff games coming in the year. You got to be the top 4 out of 8 teams to host a first round game, and that regular season takes on a whole lot more importance now.
It does, because every game matters, and in Class 3, District 1, which is Dexter's, Dexter has a very good chance because you look at Park Hills. Park Hills is the class. They lost a lot of players, but they've got a lot back, and they're going to be really tough. They beat Sullivan last night. Sullivan's a really good team. Park Hills should be the favorite to come out of that district. Potosi's going to be better, but they're not going to be world beaters. St. Genevieve, they're kind of down a little bit this year. Dexter proved they could play with them last night. And you look at everybody else, Dexter, Kennett, New Madrid, they're all kind of right there together. Anybody can beat anybody, I think, between those 3, and Fredericktown the same way, and so you've got a lot of parity in the, and so Dexter could conceivably come out of there with maybe a 2 or 3 seed, probably a 3 seed now with losing to St. Genevieve, but it's conceivable depending on who they went or who they beat, and if they can beat Kennett and New Madrid and some of those schools, that'll get them higher up there and give them a chance to win not only host a game but maybe win a couple games, in districts too.
Yeah. And we'll see how it all plays out. The landscape has really changed this year, it seems like. Mm-hmm. You've seen top 2, 3, 4 pro teams in the districts kind of take their knocks to their roster. So some of these teams are being able to move up and contest for some of those top spots.
The football, maybe the talent level may be a little bit down, but I think there's more parity this year too between a lot of the teams. I think there's going to be a lot of games where you're not really sure who's going to come out the winner. It's going to be a lot of close games, a lot of like the Dexter St. Genevieve game last night. A lot of games that go down to the very end where kind of sometimes in the past you have. You pretty much know going into the game, who should win unless there's an upset. I think there's a lot more parity this year. It makes it a lot more fun. But it's you still have your top teams. Jackson, Cape Central, I think would be the favorites in the large school, and then of course Crothersville and Malden in the smaller schools. But everybody else is just kind of right there in a big group, and I think anybody can beat anybody on a given night.
Yeah, we'll be looking forward to all those games in the weeks ahead. Week 1 is in the books. Looking forward to week 2, and of course we're going to be getting into volleyball and fall baseball, and those sports coming up. They'll be getting their season underway this next week as they get into theirs. Just a quick reference to volleyball. What's some teams to maybe look out for this year?
Well, you always have Perryville and Notre Dame. That's always they've kind of been the class. I think Perryville finally got Notre Dame last year and knocked them off, but I think Dexter has a chance to really make some noise this year. They seem to have their program has been kind of climbing the last couple of years, and I think they may be ready to take that next step. They've got some seniors that have been there for a few years. They've got a young freshman that's coming in that's going to help them a lot. I think they're going to be a very good team, and they can make some noise in that district. Of course, your smaller schools, you've always got Bernie and your smaller schools like that's always pretty good. And volleyball is kind of a big thing around here. Especially in the smaller schools. Because they don't have a whole lot else, and so they really file in, pack the places for those volleyball games, and they're fun to watch. And but as far as I think Dexter is a surprise team. In the larger schools, there's really nobody that I think it's kind of the usual suspects. But smaller schools, like I said, I don't know a whole lot about them, but I know Bernie's always there year in and year out. Bloomfield's always pretty good, and all those Stoddard County teams usually are pretty good as far as that goes, and you have Leopold and some of those schools. So the small schools, they just kind of fight it out every year, and you never know who's going to come out of it with those smaller schools.
Yeah, so we'll be looking forward to that as well with the high school volleyball getting underway. It seems like we always have at least a couple teams, you say up to state, but state's up at Cape now, so that makes the trip up to Cape.
So I'd say it's a lot nicer up at Cape. It's a lot you don't have to drive as far.
Yeah, well, for those in southeast Missouri that's covered it, played in it, going to Kansas City all those years, I think it's time to have it down this corner of the state now.
and volleyball is kind of a hotbed down here. Like I said, especially in the smaller schools. When you get up to the northern part, it's not as big of a deal. And we've noticed that just by covering the different schools, it's just not quite as big of a deal as it is down here. And I think it's great for the smaller schools to be able to travel. And they'll bring their entire team. When Bernie played there a couple of years ago, they brought the entire town to watch them play, and it was fun, and it was a great atmosphere for the kids. And I think that it makes it better for them. When in Kansas City, the atmosphere wasn't always the same. So I think I really like it in Cape. I think it's a great choice. And I know those Kansas City schools hate driving, but hey, for years we had to drive up there, from this area. So it's fair.
Yeah, spread it out a little bit. So when I saw Cape Girardeau Show Me Center, like, oh my goodness, like. We don't get things like that,
Usually, it's not,
we don't have it that well. We're the usually ones that have to travel everywhere.
It seems like every sport we're having to travel 4 or 5 hours to get to wherever we need to go for this championships. And it's nice to have one close.
Sure is. Well, that'll pretty much wrap up today's show. We've pretty much touched on all the high school football coming in to week 2, and week 1's in the books, and looking forward to next weekend. Certainly the season going forward. And we'll look forward to it. It's exciting as always. Hopefully it'll just start to cool down a bit, which has been pretty cool all summer. It's one of the coolest summers on record. Now
right until they start the first game, and then let's turn the heat up.
Last week the heat turned up for sure. Boy, there's some players down with cramps last night.
Fortunately I was at the Charleston-Saxton game, and there was a lot of subbing in that one. There wasn't a whole lot of cramping going on. But it's a bad time of year. Sometimes I wish they would kind of move it back a little bit and do like some other states and play it close. Play it a couple weeks further into December. But I understand that you don't want to mix in with basketball. I understand that. So in order to play on Friday nights, they had to move it up this year. So every playoff game is going to be on a Friday night or Saturday, where you get a full week's rest instead of the way they used to do it, where you just have 4 or 5 days. So it's good for the kids, but starting out in the heat like this isn't always the best thing either. But you just can't do anything about it.
There's only a window you can work
right
with.
Yeah, there's only so much you can do, and the kids' health, as far as concussions and getting their bodies replenished and everything, in those playoffs. You want your best team at playoff time. You want them fully healthy and give them the best chance to get on the field and to get their bodies healed from the week before. And so I understand why they're doing it. It's just, boy, it was hot last night. It was hot.
It was hot. Maybe we'll have a better forecast for this week, but we'll see about that. Well, Dave, we appreciate you spending some time with us today, talking about these teams coming into this year. And all football fans are ready, and it's high school football under the lights. It's a lot of fun, and the colleges will be getting started the next week, and then the pros the week after. So already getting off to a start here with high school football, and looking forward to another great year. So again, we appreciate you coming along and talking with us.
Anytime.
All right. And that'll do it for us today. We appreciate you for tuning in as always. Remember, every Saturday morning, live at 10 a.m., replayed at Saturday 4 and 8:30. You can even catch archive episodes on YHCTV.com, SemoSportsZone.com, and we'll keep you updated with everything happening each week with the sports landscape here in Southeast Missouri, Northeast Arkansas. And we'll look forward to seeing you next week. Until then, have a good one. Stay cool out there. Stay cool. And we'll see you next week. Take care.